They did my boy John dirty like that. They did my boy John dirty like that. Damn, that was just so bad. Just stands up there, all brave, thwack, just gone. Instant death. Done. It's over. I don't think he's dead, honestly. He should be dead. Let's be perfectly honest. Your head's not supposed to turn that direction. All the body parts are not supposed to go those directions. Neck's got to connect right there. He should be done, but he's not dead. And yes, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's way too much buildup here. Now, I've seen cases in the past where, yes, there's like this a lot of buildup to a character just to have them just like instantly killed like that, but not typically in anime, not typically in Japanese mediums. And that's kind of an interesting thing there. Obviously, there's been a lot of buildup to John's character through Castor as being this protagonist. So I don't see them spending an entire quarter of an episode last episode talking up this guy about how great he is, how he's going to fulfill this role, how Castor's going to glorify his story just for him to be dead like that. Plus, yes, Castor brought up something with that gauntlet that he has on. He hasn't got to use that gauntlet yet. And he says specifically there's something about the gauntlet that I'll explain later. It's probably going to be this. There's going to be something about this gauntlet that he didn't want to tell him at the time because it's a little bit hard to talk about, that this gauntlet's going to possibly bring him back, going to keep him going. Which, yes, that brings up the question mark, is that even if he does survive this, does it even matter? I mean, do you really expect this John guy with his gauntlet, which is a fake noble phantasm from Castor, to be enough to take out Alcadas when Jack the Ripper couldn't beat him? Jack the Ripper, who was seen as being like this demonic being of pure power and human killing, just got knocked out. I don't think this boy with his little gauntlet, his little toy punching bag thing, he's gonna work that well. We'll see though. Maybe it's just his undyingness that may come from that gauntlet will be enough to, at least hold back Alcadas for somebody else to step up. But yeah, that was a little bit of a rough ending there. But yes, episode 9 of Fate Strange Fake. Overall, really, really solid episode. I'm really happy that we actually got some fights going on. We were actually seeing some fights, and not just fights, but seeing ramifications of fights. I think too much so far, we've got these build-ups to the fights, and then something happens, and then somebody comes in, interrupts it, and then it stops. It's like they feel a little anticlimactic. You don't have that end point, some sort of, irreversible effect for having the fight. Here we're having it. Here we finally have literally somebody's noble phantasm gets just taken. Jack the Ripper is done for. And the question mark is going to be going forward is, what's next for Jack the Ripper? Like now that he's still usable. He's still a fighter. He's still a servant. He just doesn't have a noble phantasm. It's just, unfortunately, noble phantasms are kind of important. as we've seen with every series and this one as well. When the noble phantasms come out, people take note. That's the point in which that's their big trump card. That's their ultimate right there. Their pop with ultimate. Things get destroyed. As we see here with Jack the Ripper and Natural Born Killers. It lucky it was about to take out Alcadas. And unfortunately, Alcadas, I'm assuming, busted out the mud. I don't know. It didn't really give us an indication exactly how he was able to stop the attack. But he stopped the attack. And then he decided to use his noble phantasm. I'm assuming it's a noble phantasm. Reincarnation Pandora. I'll take that. I'm just going to pillage your ability. I'm just going to steal your stuff. I'm known for being a super. Be mad at me. That's all fine. I'm going to take your ability. So yeah, going back to my original point, glad to see this fight actually play out and see some actual ramifications for the fight. We're going to have, even if nobody dies in the end, things are going to change going forward. And it's going to be, question mark, again, going forward is, what is Jack's next step here? I think it's going to be a lot to do with Flat and Jack really kind of figuring out how to get around not having a noble phantasm. Or Flat's a smart dude. Flat's a very smart dude. Can Flat figure out how to restore it without even having to go kill Alcadas? Figure out how to restore it in some way to give him back to his full potential. But getting into the actual episode itself, the fight between Jack the Ripper and Alcadas was really awesome. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it sort of personifies their beliefs and the beliefs of people around them. Jack the Ripper is interesting as a character, as a servant, because yes, by all accounts and a lot of, actual written history, Jack the Ripper is a human. He's an actual human. So how do you get a heroic spirit, a servant, something that is powerful from something that is so written as human? It's all the stories writing up Jack the Ripper himself. All the other stories that people write about how scary he is. He was feared. And people sort of turned him from just a person who enacted a bunch of murders to somebody who is literally a spawn from hell. this being from hell that escaped from hell and is now on these streets fighting the Cerberus and Alcadas. What's before us right now is literally what people turn him into. And that's what the fascinating thing is. That's, yes, technically the case with a lot of servants. It's whatever their heroic spirit is, what people create, the myths themselves of the individual. But Jack the Ripper is more interesting just because of how much is wrote about him that is so, again, not fiction. We have so much records around him, so seeing him sort of become that spawn is cool. At the same time, I love how he plays so much into what Alcadas wants. I like early on, it talks about the idea of him, being this god or whatever, and he's like, no, don't call me a god. Let's talk about Cerberus. He said that, yes, I'm being from hell. It's fitting that I'm gnawed and chewed on endlessly by, this guardian from hell. So if you're controlling that guardian from hell, that must mean that you're this, god or whatever. Don't call me a god. Okay, that's fine. I won't call you a god. But what's great here is that he goes, if you want to so badly not be a god, if you want to distance yourself from that so much, I'll play into this. Just like any other human, you want to be a human, just like any other human, you will die at the hands of me. It's like, okay, I've killed tons of humans before, and you want to be a human so bad, serve up the platter. Serve up the platter. I'll take you on. I'll do this for you. Don't worry about that. But yes, eventually, unlocking his full potential, becoming this massive demon, getting Jester over there really excited. Jester's over there getting really excited because, again, Jester's acknowledging the same thing that we are. The fact that he is sort of this manifestation of, the delusions of humans. And even later on, Gilgamesh, when he shows up, the fact that, Alcadas is being pushed back by this individual, and he's laughing at it because your opponent is mere delusions of humans. You're being defeated because humans are afraid of their own shadow. It's good stuff. It was a interesting little fight they kind of go through. And again, eventually, at some point, Richard shows up, but he still wants to take down Alcadas himself. Eventually building into, again, the idea that he's acknowledging that he wants to be human. He's going to take him down. But upon using his noble phantasm, natural-born killers, which seems based on the dialogue itself, seems to be a manifestation of the desires of mankind. It says humans do not defeat us. Humans are sages who create us. They are fools, and they are merely feed that cannibalize each other. Natural-born killers. I wonder if that's a manifestation of the dark desires of all individuals. Again, being that humans are the sages that created them, created the idea of killers. Humans create killers, and he is, in this moment, a manifestation of all those killers that are created by humans. It seems to be what I kind of get a sense from there, and it's kind of interesting in that regard. But yes, doesn't really work. Alcadas at some point just stops him and says, yep, you're worthy of respect. I'm going to despoil you. I'm gonna pillage your noble phantasm. Just takes it. Just like that. Just takes it before walking up. Again, interesting little fight. I'm curious to see what they'll end up doing with Jack the Ripper going forward, but for now, he's not in a good state. Which is interesting, honestly, because Flott seemed to have a lot of confidence about Jack the Ripper. And again, I give, based on what's happened before, I give Flott a lot of respect whenever he has his decisions made about things. So him seeing that there's no way that Berserker is going to fail kind of tells me that this is something crazy to happen. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he might not be picking up on the fact that Alcadas has this mud, which again is making him extremely powerful. Outside of the fight between Jack and Alcadas, of course, we had Gilgamesh show up at some point. Again, make that comment about you're getting beat up by the delusions of humans. And while they're fighting, of course, we have Richard shows up. And Richard has Sigma and Assassin with him. Richard was going to take on Alcadas, but he's like, no, I'll take care of that. You take care of the Golden Boy. And then we have a fight between Richard and Gilgamesh. I really do like the two of these facing off against each other because you have, again, Richard is the, bubbly protagonist character. Everything's happiness and flowers and, let's fight together. This is great. He's just enjoying his time. Over here, Gilgamesh is like, stop looking at me. How dare you address me? You are lower than dirt. How dare you touch my weapons? I like that part. He's shooting all the things at him. Richard's like, these are so cool. Can I have some? No, you can't have them. Don't you dare address me like that. I'll pay you for them, but can I just borrow them for the rest of these fights? Like, Richard's trying to set up a deal with him. Can I just borrow these things? Which, honestly, based on how, he talks about, borrowing people's abilities from the past, other, heroic spirits, he's going to be borrowing their abilities. With that statement there, it makes me believe that, yes, he's either already in his mind too used to that idea, that he's already setting up for the potential of this, but what are the chances of Gilgamesh being taken out? And then Richard manifests Gilgamesh just out of respect. Like, Gilgamesh is like, fine then, I will help you with later fights or whatever. I don't know. Just based on this conversation, like, can I borrow these things for later fights? That'd be really cool. And yes, at some point during the fight, Gilgamesh finally acknowledges that Richard's moving in a way that shows that he's fought somebody like that before, like a certain Enkidu, at which point he gets a little jealous. Yeah, I fought a guy like that yesterday, and we became friends. Yeah, my friend's a little bit too soft. I'm gonna test you now. See if you're worthy of being my enemy. Jealous Gilgamesh. A little jealous Gilgamesh. Outside of that, I think the other thing of note in this episode was the scene where Sigma takes Ayaka to the church. And at that point, Hansa ends up bringing her in, shows her some protection. And yes, Sigma has a little conversation with Assassin. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm not 100% entirely sure what to get out of this scene. And the idea that, yes, obviously Sigma is questioning Assassin. Why are you bothering with trying to save this girl? We're getting a sense of why Sigma is doing it. And that's what I would assume is because, Sigma sees himself in Tsubaki. That Tsubaki is this young kid that has been exploited by people, experimented on, all that kind of stuff. Just like him. Nobody came to save me, and now I have a chance to go save her. I'm going to do that. So I get a sense of why Sigma's doing this. He's making his own choice for once in his life. He's questioning why is Assassin doing it. You're here to stop this Holy Grail war. You want to destroy it. Why would you bother going to save this girl? And Assassin's talking about, oh, well, you don't have experience with, the idea of faith and all that kind of stuff. So you don't quite understand. There's no greater good than saving a young child whose heart has never been filled yet. She's seeing that this innocence of this child deserves something. I want to protect her so that she can seek out her life. There's no greater deed than doing that. And I want to do that. I want to fulfill that role. I didn't quite get the stuff that was after that about the aspect of inexperience and stuff like that. I think it's just really an aspect of her acknowledging her own failures. She's not quite developed yet. She's made mistakes in the past, and she doesn't want to make those mistakes again. That's what I'm sort of getting with that. The later parts of it does make sense to me as well, and the idea that, yes, it's Sigma, obviously, at that point acknowledging that he wanted to be saved. And I think that plays into why he's saving Tsubaki again. I think right here he's going, oh, that's why I want to do this, is because nobody saved me. Because I failed this, I want to do this. And maybe that's what Assassin was really talking about. He's sort of picking up on. But I do like how she kind of replies to that in the idea of, I failed to protect you. I'm sorry. You were experimented on. I wish I could have saved you too. I'm saving her right now. But yes, it shows my experience that I was unable to save you. His response is, you literally came here as a servant. You weren't here back there. I can't blame you because you weren't even existing here. You were from a different timeline. And she's like, but I'm here now. I'm here now. Thus, time and space and all that kind of stuff doesn't really matter, right? I could have been here for you, but I wasn't. I think that's extremely overly humble for her to say something like that. I think that's a bit much of guilt on herself, but I get the point here. It's still sweet in the end. She wants to save all individuals. She wants to save, Tsubaki because that's part of her beliefs, her faith. And now there's an individual in front of her that was failed to be protected. She's trying to console him in a way by saying, I wish I could have. I'm not a hypocrite here. I'm not saying I want to save her, but I would never save you. I want to save you too, but I couldn't. That's my inexperience. I should have been able to break time and all that kind of stuff to be able to save you. They're developing these two. Developing this relationship a little bit more too. Assassin seems pretty cool. I like Assassin. I like this little conversation with her. Again, despite the fact that there's a little bit in here where it's like, what are we talking about? It seems to get a little bit lost in here when she's talking about, like, speaking from an experience. Devout do not think about things about merit. They simply hear the greater voice and choose a path. I guess that makes sense. When he questioned if it's only because she's devout that she wants to save the child, she says, I could not do away with anger against the heretics and could not become open-minded. So long as my wish to save others is mixed with my faith is nothing but arrogance that thinks lightly of destiny. My inexperience is no reason not to save young child. Again, it gets a little bit like riddly in there, and I'm not really... I get what it's saying, but I don't get what it's saying, if that makes sense. It's not substance. Like, it feels like just a lot of riddles. But in the end, it kind of just turns into the idea this is what she believes. This is what she believes is saving individuals like that is important to her. She's going to do it. I think that's pretty much it. Was there anything that I missed? Really, really good episode. A lot more to talk about than I originally thought there would be, despite the fact there was a lot of fighting. The fights themselves were incredible. There was like some moments in Alcadas versus Gilgamesh that was a little weird, a little bit off. I think it's awesome. Like seeing Alcadas flipping around and stuff like that, it's always fantastic. And Gilgamesh always sitting up there all tall, not wanting to move, just shooting down on them. There was one shot though, like where Alcadas kind of did the little barrel roll, and there's like the two little blades. It looked a little off, but other than that, everything else looked incredible. The fight scenes were great. I love at some point when Richard finally got a Gilgamesh to actually draw his sword. It's you're doing really good when Gilgamesh goes from this pose to now suddenly having something in his hand. You know that you're gonna probably piss him off at that point. You've officially crossed the line with him when you get him to actually move his hands. Anyways, that's my thoughts on the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below if you like this content and want to support channel more. Become a member. Until next time, you'll take care.